Okay, so first things first, we'll talk about how to set up a HUD. Hopefully this will be relatively briefly, since I imagine a lot of you do just set up or do have a setup for your HUD already. So basically you'll go up to your Hold'em HUD options, hit player preferences, and you'll see essentially this menu. There's about a billion things you can do here. I'll show you my method for doing it and kind of talk about a few other deviations you can do. But for all intents and purposes, it would take, like, there's no way I could fit talking about every way to do a HUD and every feature on the HUD into a Quickie. So as you can see, my HUD, and these are basically the Damn Ringer approved stats, meaning that these are the stats that I think are the bare minimum. That being said, it's very important that you don't clutter up your HUD, as that's obviously one of the objectives of a HUD, is to be able to quickly derive information from, or I guess pull off information. You're not deriving much, where, you know, basically you should be able to take 1 second or half a second, glance at a number, see the number, make an assessment, and make a decision. And that's usually how quick it's going to happen in online poker, especially if you're mass tabling, playing something like 12 or 16 tables. It's certainly going to be something where you don't have all day to go, well, what does this number mean? So at the end of the day, you really do need to have some greater understanding of what the HUD stats actually mean, as opposed to just putting what I tell you to put up there. So I would actually recommend doing some level of research or some level of thought about each of the numbers, and I can briefly talk about what I think of each number. So basically, you'll see that also I have color ranges here for my stats, and actually I think for every one of them I have a color range. And basically I do the following, where the number will change colors based off of what it is. So here you can see that if the number is teal, it's got a VPIP lower than 12, which I would view as a very nitty VPIP. Red would be less than 18. I would say that's a very decent, probably a good VPIP. Certainly falls into the range of a good VPIP. Now, of course, you could have players who are playing, say 15-2, and that would be obviously an example of not a good player, but at the same time, his VPIP's probably very solid. He's just got to get that PFR up. So you can see, yeah, so basically in between, if it falls in the medium of 18 and 12, it goes to red, and if it falls in between 22 and 18, it goes to yellow. And yellow I kind of view as a much more aggressive VPIP, playing a lot of hands, but not necessarily bad. A lot of the best players are playing yellow, especially at 6 max. I would argue that, and granted these are full ring stats, so you can actually set up a HUD to be specifically 6 max. I don't actually have that just because I'm used to seeing numbers be a certain color, I guess. And then, but we can talk about that in a bit. And then basically anything over 22 I've got is green, which is kind of my fishier stat. So you can see that in my ranges here, this is kind of where I've assessed what I think is a nitty VPIP, what I think is a normal VPIP, what I think is like an aggressive VPIP, and what I think is way too high of a VPIP. Certainly a fishier VPIP. And here you'll be able to choose, you can choose your size and style. Also, there's a few options here, and I won't touch on this for every single one of them, but something like abbreviation, this is, you could put in front of each number, where you can basically say, if you don't want to remember that the first number is VPIP, just as you see the first number, you could type in, like, say, V colon, and that would be something where it would now add a V colon in front of the number. I find this to be kind of a cluttery type of a, I guess it clutters up your HUD, and actually it's something that I think is kind of a crutch, where if you're not taking the time to sit down and memorize your own HUD numbers, then you've got too many numbers, would be my, I coach students and I see things where I'm like, okay, like he needs a reminder, or he's got, like a notepad up to remind himself what each number is. And if you're really like checking the index of like what each number means, like you're doing the HUD thing wrong.